Ayo, Zahn is on, and here to watch Conquering the World Using Only Slaves by Reggie. So, we are here for yet another Reggie video, my favorite schizophrenic slime. And this time, I have no idea what game we're supposed to be doing. I haven't even looked to confirm, but all I know is that, judging from just the title, it sounds like we're about to do some world-conquering business using slaves. So, hooray! We about to get into some of that slavery again. I'd say this is pretty straightforward. Not much for me to say here, so I'd say we just get straight to it, yeah? So, without further ado, let's get to it.
Before I was a YouTuber, I injected other people with drugs, but now I inject myself. Conquest of Elysium 5 is a turn-based strategy game developed by two Swedish men who are staking their entire reputation on the belief that peak web design occurred somewhere around 1994. In this game,
oh boy, I was about to say, we going with the Swedish.
Is a turn-based strategy game developed by two Swedish men who are staking their entire reputation on the belief that peak web design occurred somewhere around 1994. In this game, you will choose one of various highly detailed factions and autistically read every page of the wiki until you stop losing to the Baron on turn 3. But no matter where you look on the wiki, you will not find anything about beating the game using an army of slaves, because it's a terrible idea. The humble slave sports a whelming attack of 1 to 4 damage, a mere 4 hit points, and such exciting abilities as level 1 spear, which makes it an interesting choice against
such wonderful equipment. Oh boy. We're gonna need to up those numbers, if not in terms of the quality, then of the quantity.
Such exciting abilities as level 1 spear, which makes it an interesting choice against enemy factions equipped with armies of animated weapons, legions of the undead, and even God himself.
God.
I have a foolproof strategy to help us overcome these challenges. But before we go any further, I have to tell you something.
Tell me.
6 years ago, I was committed to a maximum security mental hospital. Every single day, they would administer to me 37 Flintstones vitamins, 1 gang.
Bro, those Flintstone vitamins go hard though. But I guess the question is, do you prefer the hard ones or the chewables? Also, it seems quite fitting that Reggie would be in a mental asylum.
Now come on, let's go! Get up, hurry!
Every single day, they would administer to me 37 Flintstones vitamins, 1 gang beating, and a 40-minute session of CBT. They call this modern therapy. However, there's only one thing that silences the maelstrom of unspeakable thoughts rampaging through my broken mind, and that is Rise of Kingdoms, a free-to-play.
Oh wait, it's an ad, right?
In this revolutionary
I forget that he introduces these ads in the most wild ways possible.
Gaming experience, you play as one of several historical leaders and expand your empire through military action and clever economic strategy. However, this is more than a game to me. This is my life. Just yesterday, I asked Attila the Hun what I should do about my noisy neighbors, and I followed his advice religiously.
What did he say? Burn the villages, trample the weak, hurdle the dead.
I followed his advice religiously. I recently started playing the game again, and you should too, because they've added a new civilization, the Mayans. This faction gets a massive gold buff, which will help it compete with its enemies such as the Romans and the Chinese. But that's not all. Returning players will get new commanders King Arthur, Lady Six, and 6 tavern heroes completely for free. If you ever wanted to rewrite history where King Arthur starts the First World War and the Mayans turn France into a penal colony, now is your best chance. Use my link in the description to try Rise of Kingdoms today. Alright, let's start setting things.
I'm just gonna say, I'm not really interested in mobile games. To say that I would never play a mobile game is a lie. Gacha games are almost inherently rooted in mobile games. But I just wouldn't play these. Back in my school days, sure, that'd be different. I don't play these types of games anymore.
Your best chance. Use my link in the description to try Rise of Kingdoms today. Alright, let's start setting things up. We choose the Priest King faction because it offers the most robust slave economy in the game. Then
oh yay, we're about to min-max our slavery.
We set the map to large, add 9 random opponents, pray to God one of them isn't a necromancer, and begin the match. Our empire is born in the arid savannah, to the east of a giant stone golem and south of a pack of man-eating wolves.
Very cool.
This is considered relative.
Oh god, I remember that video. video. Freaking the guy just demonstrating what it was like getting like attacked by a dog.
Safe by Conquest of Elysium standards. Now let's set some ground rules. This faction has access to a wide variety of recruitable units to build a diverse and well-balanced army.
We are going to use none of that and focus only on the slaves.
We're going to ignore all of that. Instead, we will only use slaves and units which interact with slaves.
I mean, I guess that would make sense. You can't just have slaves. You must have their owners too.
Such as the tribal king for hunting them down, and the high shamans, which are capable of sacrificing them in exchange for powerful rewards.
Ooh, hold up. Okay, maybe maybe quality doesn't matter. Just have so much where you can just make these gifts.
For example, we can sacrifice 25 slaves to summon a magical turkey. I am considering this.
Oh yeah, turkey! What an upgrade!
Acceptable. Now let's talk about the strategy. This is Kukstal, the tribal king. If we take him to a populated city, we can use his ability Hunt for Slaves, which generates between 1 and 20 slaves each turn.
Damn.
Not only is this completely free, but the supply of available slaves appears to be infinite, meaning we can buy hundreds of tribal kings, set them up AFK farming in our base, and then build armies with thousands of slaves.
Oh my god!
How are we gonna lose then?
Each turn. Forget apartment rentals. This is the ultimate passive income. But right now it's just
wow.
So
it really is. It's like playing Genshin and like sending your character off to an expedition to gather materials. Except in this case, you're sending them to like a city or whatever and just gathering slaves.
We need to capture additional towns and villages to be able to afford more tribal kings. So I gathered up some slaves and set out to expand our empire. But for some reason, the very universe itself seems to resist the development of our slave utopia.
Damn, you are sandwiched by a lot of dangers.
Because the first few times I tried to expand, I was promptly beaten to death by a gang of monkeys and trampled by an elephant. However,
damn, you know you have it bad if you can't even beat an elephant.
On the third attempt, we finally had some luck. Overrunning the militia of this market village allowed us to set up an additional
swarming tactics. That's the way. You are all expendable, but as long as you achieve victory, you shall reap the rewards. Well, we will. You probably won't.
Oh, that's real nice.
Slave recruitment center. At this point, you may be wondering, is this really the entire plan? Just human wave tactics with kidnapped peasants?
I mean, do you have any better ideas?
The answer is yes, mostly. Our priest
mostly?
Also plays an
So we start to spice things up later down the line, huh?
important role because of his blessing abilities. In the middle of combat, he likes to throw bottles of holy water at his slaves and imbue them with powerful blessings. So instead of useless meat shield, they turn into useless meat shield +1 health. However, the fun thing is that we can sacrifice slaves to
I mean, it's a marginal increase, especially if it affects an area.
Permanently upgrade our blessings. So best case scenario, we wipe out 90% of our own population to turn the remaining 10% into super soldiers.
I was about to say, like, sacrifice for the greater good.
We must sacrifice a virgin.
You will strengthen your brothers with your own life. Maybe cough up like maybe 10 more lives for that. And you will strengthen your brothers. Now keep them coming. Keep them coming. Come on. Your brothers won't get stronger unless the rest of you die for their cause.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves because someone's already invading our territory. After some investigating, we come across the Baron and his castle. This faction gets disgusting once their economy hits mid-game. Meanwhile, our economy peaked somewhere around 2 turns ago, so we need to eliminate the Baron as quickly as possible, which means it's time for a slave sacrifice. Gentlemen, look at the man on your left and the man on your right. You will all die. Stand still. I used my priest to sacrifice 50 slaves in exchange for a couple of jaguars and a floating cat. Not exactly the divine blessing.
Ooh, I don't know. That looks pretty divine to me.
I don't know what that is.
I was hoping for, but either way, we waited until the Baron left his castle and we sieged it on the next turn. No matter how desperately my slaves clawed at the gates, they couldn't break through. However, we won anyway because the Baron's archers got so tired from massacring our slaves that they actually died of exhaustion.
Yo, human wave tactics is so good, bro. Why would you play any other way.
So tired from massacring our slaves that they actually died of exhaustion. This is a high-level slave strategy, and definitely not something I did by accident. Since it's still early game, this was the Baron's...
No, don't worry. I trust you. Trust the process.
And definitely not something I did by accident. Since it's still early game, this was the Baron's only castle, and by capturing it, we eliminated his entire faction. One down,
Damn.
8 more to go. And it looks like
Fair enough. Like, it's still early game, but like, damn, already one fool out? That's crazy.
Our next enemy. To the west, I spot something truly horrific. Another priest king. This pretender king is not only stealing my identity, he's also stealing my slaves. I know I said earlier that the slave supply was infinite, but that's still not enough to convince me to share with this hack piece of garbage. So
in this world, monopolies win. And all I can say is, you're in the way.
I head back to the capital to replenish our ranks. Now with 80 slaves, we push toward the false prophet. His first castle is defended by exactly 2 people. We attack it, and I stare at my screen in bewilderment as we lose 65 men in the process. Fortunately, we've got 5 tribal kings doing 24/7 slave hunting, so they're quickly replaced. Pushing deeper into enemy territory, I come across his Bastion of Darkness. After last siege,
Bastion of Darkness? What is that supposed to mean?
Pushing deeper into enemy territory, I come across his Bastion of Darkness. After last siege, it became abundantly clear that if we attack this, we will die. So I sacrifice 125 slaves to the god of war. In exchange, he blesses us with a giant parrot. It may
What are we gonna do with that? Moral support?
look like our god is just scrounging up these blessings from between his couch cushion.
Pretty much. Ew, what the fuck is that? It was moving.
Parrot. It may look like our god is just scrounging up these blessings from between his couch cushions.
Oh.
The parrot is actually perfect. It has a siege ability which allows it to drop boulders on enemy defenders. So we took our army and attacked the
Oh wait, that's so good actually. What?
enemy capital city. The boulders weakened the gates enough for us to break through, at which point I realized
That parrot is huge! What? Bro, look at the size of that thing.
Oh my god.
At which point, I realized the parrot also knows level 2 fire magic, and he spent the entire fight immolating the terrified defenders. Very nice. So we captured the Priest King's base, and I enslaved everyone. Men,
Very
women,
cool.
children, cats, dogs, here's some shackles, a spear, and a 37-second life expectancy. Have fun. Naturally, the enemy Priest King, Itzlakolikwe, didn't take too kindly to this, and he brought back his main army to kill us. This was a big issue, until he decided to attack a Hydra, which ate half of his units. Then he jumped to the other half and stabbed them to death with 400 slave spearmen.
Damn.
The loss of his main army and capital city spelled disaster for the imposter king.
Oh,
and
but you
3 turns
lost
later,
you
his
lost the
faction was
bird.
extinct.
You had like multiple birds.
The loss of his main army and capital
Look at
city
that. One of
spelled
them's almost
disaster for
dead.
the imposter king, and 3 turns later his faction was extinct, thus giving us control of the entire bottom left corner of the map.
Awesome.
To celebrate this monumental achievement, I decided to sacrifice 100 slaves to summon a Balaam. This is a jaguar the size of an elephant. You can tell it's a jaguar because it has the exact same icon. The art budget
How does this looks the same, it's just bigger.
is truly in dire straits. On to the next target, the Druid. You see this forest? You see how it's kind of extra green? That's how you know you've got a Druid infestation. These little weirdos will invade your ecosystem and start talking to all of the animals, and even some of the bugs too. They'll radicalize
giant
against
centipede.
you with their extremist ideas, and before you know it, you're being eaten alive by an army of rabbits. In fact, there's one of his
Subaru would be crying if he heard that.
ideas, and before you know it, you're being eaten alive by an army of rabbits. In fact, there's one of his sick little armies right now.
Oh,
We have
God.
to put an end to
The
this before he
mantis.
forges alliances with the elephants. Heading south, we immediately come
Ooh,
across
I
the
remember
main
what happened with
Druid
that.
stack, a centaur army fielding several boars, grizzly bears, and a few moose. As the battle started, his sick druid plans became clear. He's using mass sleep spells to roofie half of my army.
Oh
and then
my.
He's deploying his moose as armor
I didn't know that those centaurs came straight from the club.
piercing missiles and driving them straight through my front line to try to reach my casters. However, I've got like half a kilometer of front line, so he was burnt up on entry. After that, we just worked our way through the petting zoo that was his army, lit his commander on fire, and pulled his neck apart with jaguars.
Goodness
now, that's
gracious.
how you deal with a druid infestation. While we were stomping on the druid's head, I couldn't help but notice a bunch of purple armies running around our territory. These belong to Tedbolt the Demonologist, and he's teleporting them here using this magical gateway. His armies are full of ghouls, devils, lesser demons, and Tedbolt himself. Now, the satanic arts are one thing, but I do not take kindly to the elderly.
Oh, shit!
To accomplish this, I recruit a new priest and pray to the god of death. I was hoping the death god might just kill Ted in a motorcycle accident, but instead he provided us the tools to do it ourselves. By throwing hundreds of slaves in a volcano, we were awarded Bolan Tiku. He's
Ooh, what is this?
a powerful spellcaster with death magic. So I took him,
Death
1,200 slaves, and this weird fish guy and attacked
This weird fish guy, where'd he come from?
Ted in a tribal village. Now, I was prepared for the Demonologist to know a few spells. However, I was not prepared for his dogs to be able to breathe fire. In a matter of minutes, the dogs alone had incinerated hundreds of slaves while suffering no casualties. I thought this wouldn't be a problem, because way in the back line, my fishman was spending the entire time summoning animated puddles of water. However, I failed to account for the fact that the Demonologist was not only killing my slaves, but he was also reanimating them into soulless corpses to attack me with.
That's a bad. How are you gonna turn this around?
If this fight was a chess match, now would be the time we slam our head on the board as hard as humanly possible. But what about Bolan Tiku, I hear you say? Oh, don't worry, they lit him on fire and beat him to death. So, long story short...
Oh, awesome. Your amazing spellcaster was dead upon the first battle.
I'm gonna be a one-man cheeseburger apocalypse.
Lost 1,200 slaves in a single afternoon. Meanwhile, Ted went from 62 troops to 29. That's a 36-to-1 casualty ratio.
Okay, I mean, just rebuild your lost assets and then just try again.
As if that wasn't bad enough, I took my Priest King and wandered into the forest to clear my mind. But instead of peaceful reflection, I found a druid waiting for me with a gang of radicalized caribou and venomous snakes. They wasted no time killing everyone I had, including the Priest King. This was an all-time low for the slave empire. As I look around the map, I see several other factions thriving. The Demonologist is taking all my territory, the Druids are forming interspecies marriages at an alarming rate, and the Pale Ones have a sizable army full of disgusting cave creatures. Why can't we succeed like this? Is it because I keep hurling my subjects to their death? Maybe it's the 99% illiteracy rate. No, it's because we're not trying hard enough. We need to sacrifice everybody. This has to be done. I recruit a priest of blood, then I use hundreds of slave sacrifices to ascend him to a high priest. From here, we offer 500 slaves to cast the spell Summon God.
Summon God?
The Priest King is transformed into the God of Blood.
Oh dear, okay, what's the deal here?
This is an extremely powerful unit. Yes, I am aware of the irony of doing a slave-only run and then summoning God, but just think of him like the Gestalt slave, a combination of thousands of slaves distilled into a single entity.
That is horrifying. I thought I was about to see like the goats from Overlord, but no, I saw that thing.
He comes with a wide variety of abilities, such as the ability to summon an army of jaguars, breathe poisonous gas, and most notoriously, he can cause blood to rain from the sky. The primary use of blood rain is to terrify your enemies. The secondary use is nuking your bitrate and making your recording look like shit. I never thought this game could get any less legible, but I will always find a way to disappoint you. Anyway, between God and 5,000 slaves, I think we're ready to make a comeback. Tedbolt is still busy ripping apart my dozens of slave armies, which means he wasn't able to stop us from entering this gateway, taking it back to his territory, and attacking his capital city with the God of Blood. The siege was flawless. The Rain of Blood ability hits the entire map and has a 50% chance to cause each enemy to flee. After 4 casts, all of the defenders were running off the map, except for the archers, which were trapped inside this guard tower. But not to worry, they were subsequently devoured by snakes. After this, it was open.
Jesus, that's brutal.
open season on Ted's kingdom. His primary armies were still tied down killing slaves in the desert while we slowly demolished his economy. By the time Ted did get back up to fight us, it was a bit too late, and he died a noble death of being covered in blood and having poison spit into his eyes. Just terrific. That leaves the Pale Ones and the second Druid faction. Speaking of which, the Pale One has been going around the map starting forest fires, which is narratively inconsequential, but I do enjoy knowing that somewhere in the world the Druid is crying.
I was about to say, like, that is truly an enemy of my enemy moment. It's like, ayo, I'm not affected, but go crazy. The other guy's going mad.
I decide to seize this opportunity by tracking him down and attacking him. If you're expecting his faction to have developed some new technology since the last time we met, you fundamentally misunderstand the limitations of the subhuman druid mind. Druids cannot comprehend anything above shitting in the woods and having sex with trees, which is why over the past 60 turns, our armies have evolved from slaves to God, and their army is still just a handful of wild animals. It may then be unsurprising when I tell you that we absolutely slaughtered them in this combat. His centaurs went into a frenzy.
I mean, they just refused to grow. They refused to evolve, and they just stayed the same. They remained stagnant. And that will be their downfall.
Mode, which made them invulnerable to fear, but just about everything else was packing it up after the battlefield flooded with blood. Additionally, the blood god is giving my slaves a regeneration, so we're getting pretty crazy frontline value out of a bunch of random bums I found at the bus stop. After that victory, it was just a matter of tracking down the Druid's final commanders, and before long, his faction was eliminated. This leaves us with just the Pale Ones, a race of subterranean mutants. Now, in preparation for fighting the Pale Ones, I thought it might be a good idea to capture the Capitolium from this neutral faction of barbarians. What I forgot was that the barbarians specialize in dark gypsy magic. This isn't the kind of stuff that kills you. It's the kind of stuff that makes you wish you were dead. So we won the battle, but in the process, the blood god had been permanently cursed about 7 times. He has 2 missing eyes, a chest wound, a debilitating wound, a never healing wound, low-grade PTSD, temporary insanity, and erectile dysfunction.
No, that's not real. Nah, that can't be real. Erectile dysfunction? What does a god... Well, actually, never mind. I was gonna say, like, what are the consequences for a god having erectile dysfunction? But then I realized, well, look no further than Greek mythology and you'll understand why.
The functional consequence of this is that God is now completely blind, pisses himself when fireworks go off, and sometimes he'll just go comatose and refuse to move for months at a time. Needless to say,
the god himself has gone crazy, like how most followers would when they see their deity.
I think it's time to worship a new deity. For this purpose, I chose to ingratiate myself with the god of war, and also the god of the night. By this point, we had 50 tribal kings, and we were recruiting 1,000 slaves every few turns, so finding the sacrifices to summon them wasn't difficult. Obviously, both gods are immensely dangerous, but what's really exciting about them are these spells. Army of Darkness gives all of my slaves the ethereal trait, which makes them avoid 75% of physical attacks, while Army of the Sun gives them the awe status. Basically, my slaves become so magnificent that every attack against them has to pass a morale check, which is basically impossible when blood is raining from the sky and terrifying everyone. Essentially, the combination of these spells make our slaves demigods in their own right, which is
awesome. Your slaves, they are growing stronger by the day.
It's great because the Pale Ones have been ramping up their war of aggression, and they've even formed a navy. I'll be honest, I have a hard time believing that the Pale Ones know what a boat is.
I was about to say, the way you describe the Pale Ones just make it seem like they're just complete cave dwellers that don't know anything. So how the hell did they make a boat? How the hell did they develop a navy?
Let alone how to sail one. But either way, we should probably kill them to be safe. As I was gearing up for this war, I received a notification telling me that Boneheart the Ghost Mage had started to construct a monument to Hades, which will draw all of the monsters from hell into this mortal plane. The game highly recommends stopping him, but I scanned around the map for 30 seconds and I didn't see anything, so I kind of forgot about it. Sure, it is a little weird that we've been getting attacked by ghosts these past few turns, but much like climate change, this is going to be a problem for future generations. Now, onto the Pale Ones. They have about 40% of the map under
Look at all those slaves. It just keeps going in the background.
By ghosts these past few turns, but much like climate change, this is going to be a problem for future generations. Now, onto the Pale Ones. They have about 40% of the map under their control. However, we're making 10,000 slaves every 5 turns. In fact, we have so many that the game is struggling to even process the battles. So I just fanned everyone out and started picking off settlement after settlement until I found their main army. It had the usual trappings of Pale One filth, cave cows, lots of fire, and some giant earth elementals. But they also branched out into necromantic rituals by mummifying their dead and reanimating them into cavern wights. Cool trick and all,
Cavern
but we had the
wights?
literal army of God. Admittedly, the earth elementals lasted longer than I thought, and they were even tunneling all over the battlefield, crushing dozens of slaves at a time. But it just wasn't enough, and by the end, their army was in shambles. Now it's time to track down their subterranean hideout and finish this for good. I was prepared for this search to take months, but it turns out their cave is just like 60 feet to the east of our border. So we let ourselves in and attacked their capital. The battle began with their catapults firing indiscriminately into my army. However, there aren't enough rocks in the world to kill this many slaves, and even if there
Look
were,
at all them
the
slaves.
rocks would have probably been more valuable anyway.
Me or this white rock right here? Be honest, don't lie to me.
The rock, it serves a purpose.
The primary challenge with
jeez.
this siege was the very narrow 2-tile bottleneck around the gate. This meant we could only stab it with 2 slaves at a time. Additionally, the collective mass of thousands of rabid slaves pushing forward was actually forcing hundreds of my units into the enemy moat, at which point they would drown. It wasn't until one of my gods tunneled through a rock wall and created a new entry point that we flooded into the hideout and captured his capital.
Damn, you could have done that the entire time. Some of these drowned slaves would have been unnecessary if you'd done that from the beginning.
That's all she wrote for the Pale Ones. Normally, this is where you'd get a victory screen. However, there's still one minor problem. That ghost mage from 20 turns ago, yeah, he actually finished building the monument to Hades, and now the map is swarming with 500 stacks of ghosts. Also, I want to get ahead of the allegations here. The sudden appearance of thousands of ghosts has absolutely nothing to do with me sacrificing thousands of slaves. This implication is communist propaganda, and I'll have none of it.
I mean, it's a very fair assumption. It correlates well.
Anyway, the map is flooded with violent spirits. The funny thing is that our slaves are still winning, but the amount of ghosts appears to be doubling every few turns. So we need to find and destroy the source of this dark magic. The only section of the map we haven't explored yet is the northeast, so I sent a few armies in that direction. Before long, I came across Typhon the Wraith and 540 dispossessed spirits. I think we're on the right track. I rushed Typhon with about 500 slaves, but Wraiths are very good at 2 things, AoE and lifesteal, which are the exact 2 things you need to kill 300 slaves by yourself. Eventually, we broke his morale and he died from a panic attack. We worked our way through a few more ghost armies before finally finding it, Boneheart the Ghost Mage and the Monument of Hades. We attacked the fortress containing the monument, and there was no problem killing 90% of the defenders. But the Ghost Mage himself was terror routing most of my army and killing the rest of them. However,
They were using your own tactics against you. I see.
you know who he didn't kill? God. Teodal, the god of night, cast Lunar Brilliance and smokes Boneheart in the face for 5 damage, killing him on the spot. After the battle ended, we were awarded our victory screen and a lovely faction score graph, at which point I realized, holy shit, it was never even close.
Look at that. Yo, you are so high on the chart, bro.
Well, that's going to be it for this video. We set out to prove
that's
that
it?
the humble slave isn't so helpless after all. In fact, in great enough numbers and with enough ritual sacrifice, it can become one of the strongest units in the game. Thank you to this month's patrons, and finally, thank you for watching.
Woo! Now that's what I'm talking about, baby. Yes. So, all right. So, what did we learn today? We learned that slavery wins with enough numbers, and enough sacrifices. You can achieve anything with slavery. God, that sounds so bad. Anyways, not much for me to say. Very interesting. I'd probably say that this kind of came out exactly how I would expect a Reggie video to come out. So there is that. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised about the whole like statue, the statue of Hades actually coming back. It's just a little bit. And the fact that it was actually arguably causing more trouble than the actual like factions that you had to deal with. So that was something. But yeah, no, very straightforward and very typical of Reggie. Very typical of a Reggie video. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave it there. So I will see you in the next video, whatever that is. But until then, bye.